on the podcast I record with Professor Bill, Comic Book University. 2 weeks ago, I trashed this. I was wrong. I was talking and comparing this to Incoming, of how just like in Guardians of the Galaxy, they added about 5 pages worth of story for that just so they can overprice it by a buck. And if you do the math, this will equal 40 pages of story, and that's why it costed $8. There was, I think, I counted 60 pages of artwork in this comic book. I'm not including white pages or pages like this. They gave me a lot of bang for my buck, and the stories were good. And how could I gloss over this cover? That what I don't know, man. There's no right or wrong cover to get, but it has little holes inside of it. Get out. And the cut through with the name of the artist and the writer. This was the cover for me. This spoke to me. And I don't have money. I don't have guap like that, so I can't really get a million $8 covers. I wish I could though, because they all look pretty good. But Ben Percy earned so much goodwill with me for this, for the amount of money. Sorry, the amount of pages I got per dollar, because I believe it's $5 when you convert. Because usually it's 20 pages of art and books cost $4. I'm right. So yeah, I'm always right. 20 divided by 4 equals $5. Sorry, I'm not being stupid. 20 divided by 5 is $4. Okay? Okay. Comic book. So part one story was Logan as a mutant, Logan as an X-Men, Krakoan Logan. Part two was Logan the Avenger. This was continuing what Jason Aaron got started with his Dracula vampire kind of stuff going on. He Ben Percy and Logan joining this kind of world that's happening outside of the X-Men's focuses is a breath of fresh air. I liked it. We built up on stuff in the end of that comic book. I'll do it in order. I'll start with the first story, which was an X-Force book. It does that cheap thing where it starts here. Oh my god, Wolverine went into the berserk mode. There's some footsteps. I wonder who those could be. Let's go 5 days in the past to figure out how we got here. Basically, what they were doing in Fallen Angels with the drug Overclock, they introduced a new drug in here too. And the pollen created from the Krakoan drugs apparently is super strong. And they're going to go down that path, as Sage explained to us. Sage is so much more important than she was. And that's what I want. Elevate these mutants. In X-Force, they got Sage up and they elevated Kid Omega. Or as someone else called him in the book, Quentin. Which we don't use code names during missions, guys. And then someone quickly followed up with, no, we call him Kid Omega. That was not missed on my part. I think Logan actually called him Quentin, wasn't it? They're going to use Gateway to travel because magic is still in space. You know how I feel about the teleporters. There are many other teleporters. It doesn't always got to be Gateway. But those mutants that worship, remember that whole thing that that little thing that they mentioned earlier in books before? That matters. It mattered last week in X-Force. It matters this week here. There's some mutant worshipping people. And that's where they're going to gateway into in Russia, because all of the Krakoan gates are being guarded by Russians, as we saw in Marauders. There's some continuity happening in here, not just with the Avengers group chat, it's also in not just the X-Men event. Let me speak English today. Not just within X-Men, but also within the rest of Marvel. It's as if Ben Percy reads all the books. That shows. Donny Cates, that shows. When people are actually reading all the books, it feels like, or just reference your own books if you're Donny Cates, but it feels better. It feels like I do gotta be reading all of these titles to know what's going on. A lot of double page spreads. And yeah, they use the same square of artwork. Let me say rectangle of artwork a couple times here. I don't mind. I mean, we got so much. And Kate and him are gonna talk. He's gonna call her Kitty. He shouldn't call her Kitty. Getting drunk and alcoholic with Logan. Sage. There's a meeting. There's a woman called a pale girl. The pale girl. That's the new character here. She's a psychic, and she's the one who made Wolverine go into berserk mode. And he's met by this man named Jeff Baringer was his name. Shoot, I wrote it down here because that's what my notes are for. Jeff Bannister. Now, Jeff Bannister is an interesting character. We first introduced him. I'm thinking, okay, it's just a nobody. He's from the CIA. Magneto he calls the X Force their version of the CIA, and then he also flips off Tom King. Um, but Jeff Bannister over here, he uses the word mutie when he talks about them. He's also got a daughter who these Krakoan drugs were supposed to help her. And as soon as I saw this daughter in that moment, I knew that this guy is actually worth investing in and giving my time. When I saw her over there, he and her are gonna be key. So this Jeff Bannister guy is the one who finds Logan up in Alaska in in the winter, in the wilderness. And then the halftime, like the staples are right here where we go on to the next story. Jeff Bannister should know who Logan is. That's something I complained about in other books. Well, he's got his claws out. It's Wolverine. Don't pretend like you don't know that. Don't pretend like what? Who the hell is that? Those claws are popped. It's Wolverine. You are a CIA agent. You're studying the X-Men. The first one that you're gonna look at is Professor Xavier, Magneto. Wolverine is third. Scott Summers too. Second comic book over here. Second story in the comic book. Now the artwork was lesser than, if you ask me. I'm not with it. I'm not against it. I'm not promoting it, endorsing it. I'm not big up on it. But this woman here is actually going to mean something. She speaks French, but she could use that rose to find out. She used the rose over here for double purposes. We just think it's like a stupid thing about dates, but apparently there's a property in this rose that could tell if you're a vampire or not. It's Omega Red who sends Wolverine up in this place. Apparently at the end of House of X number 5, when all the villains start showing up, this happens then. The thing is, we're so deep into Dawn of X now that we're in February. I don't think I was accepting already of villains living in Krakoa with the good guys. Wasn't the right time for it, if you ask me. There was a moment over here where Wolverine's upside down. Dude is talking to him, and I like that. I like that we gotta turn our Inkay into Malamar. For all my Pokemon fans who understand that reference, and we get to do that and read the comic book upside down. That's so cool. This is what makes it unique. Let's celebrate that. Things like this make these comic book things really cool. It's high quality paper too. So I gotta give it his props for that, for just making me feel something I don't feel every single week when I read these comic books. Jonathan Hickman has the same tendencies to do the same thing. They established about his carbonadium synthesizer, and Omega Red needs that, which is going to be what drives him to be crooked. He's going to join the X-Men, but he's going to obey Dracula. I think it's interesting. So again, like with all the trash talking I did about overpriced comics, in Ben Percy I trust. The cover design was by Chip Kidd. It wasn't by any of these artists, of course. How much credit do you really get for that though? You still get credit actually. It's creative. Anyone can do it with the right computer app, but still, it's a good looking cover. Yeah, I'm for this. UV rays, vampire guns, and okay. Here's the thing though. Also with Omega Red, as I read my notes, I want to leave with this. We're not going to get Omega Red touched on for the next few comics. He'll just be there a couple times in the background. And every time I see him as a fan, as a reader, you and I, we're going to be making these theories of, well, this is what he's been up to since, oh, look, he's standing this way, facing that way. Is he trying to not make eye contact with Magneto? Maybe someone's onto it. Every time we see Omega Red now, it's going to be a nice, fresh reminder that he's working for Dracula. I'm fairly certain the Dracula thing that was kind of dropped in Avengers and Blade is on the Avengers, so it's not dropped. But this Dracula thing might lead to an event. Now there's levels to events. There's Iron Man 2020, and there's Empire. And there's House of X. You know what I mean? Like of those tiers, I think this Dracula story will be of the Empire tier, where it'll be treated like a big deal. We'll get some tie-ins, but truly, is it game changing? Nah, it might be skippable. That's how I feel about Empire, and it hasn't even come out yet. Maybe I should have said War of Realms. It was a great closing to the Thor story, but the tie-ins were really unnecessary. But it was set up, and it's a Jason Aaron story, so maybe I should compare it to War of Realms with less tie-ins. I think this vampire thing will coincide maybe with a movie, a Disney Plus, but it feels meaningful. So I'm with it, man. I would have never thought I was with the vampire story, but I can get down with the vampire stories now. Ben Percy is fantastic. I gotta give this guy credit every time I talk about Benjamin Percy. Adam Kubert art is very good also, and the other guy Victor Bogdanovic. All right, man. 2 out of 3. Not that he sucked. He didn't ruin the comic at all. I just preferred Adam Kubert. Looking at Adam Kubert and then looking at Wolverine's face here, it's like cartoony dynamic. That's the review. Wolverine #1. I'm gonna pick up #2 when it drops. I'm gonna be at the shop. It'll be on April, not Free Comic Book Day. That would be hot, cause that's in May. You know what I say. Chillmonger doesn't play. That was embarrassing.